The protagonist was hired to be a noblewoman's teacher. When he enters her room, she tells him to come closer. Suddenly, she throws dirty water on him, kicks him, and says he stinks. She then sits in a chair and tells him to know his place, until, out of nowhere, she gets slapped. Realizing she's made a serious mistake, she listens as the protagonist tells her to stand up. The story begins with the boastful old man. That was what the people who lived in the slums of Ebelstein called that old, shabby man. He was just an old man who could use one-star magic. Proud of himself, he called himself an archmage. He had a bad temper and got angry at the children's jokes, and I learned magic from that old man. That man only needed one follower, and I wanted knowledge. I started training with him, and in 1 year, I became a one-star mage. He said I would never reach the nobles, who could use 3-star magic before coming of age. Every night, he talked about bloodlines and the difference between nobles and commoners. Then one day, he died. I found out he had been beaten by guards while trying to steal a 2-star book. After I buried him, a system appeared before me, because I'm not from this world. 4 years passed, and a noble 3-star mage became my teacher. She started teaching him about mana, when suddenly a very loud noise rang out, and everyone in the guild went on alert. She grabbed his hand and told him to follow her. She told him to listen carefully to what she was about to say. She said nobles were sensitive about their privileges, and magic was the greatest of them. She explained that it was rare for commoners to become 3-star mages, and said he had used a 2-star spell called hallucination. And so, at the age of 14, I became a 2-star mage. After that, he continued being her pupil until she left to become the teacher of a noble. She left me a 2-star magic book as a gift. 1 year later, at only 16, I learned 2 more 2-star spells. A request appears from the Grand Duchy's guild. They want to exterminate some monsters. The protagonist says something feels wrong and tries to back out. The guild leader says they need a mage and that he is the only one who can do it, then throws him a gold coin. They introduce themselves, but they do not want someone underage taking part in the mission. They talk among themselves and decide to test him. They go to the location, and the protagonist starts eliminating goblins, leaving them impressed. We return to the tavern, and his friend complains that he has become a noble's dog. But when she finds out he earned a gold coin, she wants to become one too. They comment on the request, and the protagonist says they are lying. The leader answers that they are mercenaries and only need to do the job without thinking about anything else. The next day, he continues the job and eliminates more goblins. Then they make a new request for 15 gold coins. He arrives at the Grand Duchy's mansion, and they begin introducing themselves, saying they work for him. Then the hooded girl reveals herself, and we see that she is a beautiful girl. She asks him to become her sister's teacher. We move to the Grand Duke's office, where his son is complaining about his sister laying hands on the servants. He asks how long the Grand Duke will keep ignoring it. The Duke replies that he is not the one who decides, then slams his son's head against the table. We return to the hallway with the protagonist, and she asks if he has ever heard of Lady Daila. The siblings appear and greet each other, but the protagonist soon starts observing and understanding the whole situation so far. They begin speaking with the Grand Duke. She leaves so they can talk alone. The Duke starts asking about the protagonist's age and level. He says he is 16 and a 1-star mage, but the Duke sees through the lie and advises him not to do that. The protagonist thinks it is difficult to fool a 5-star mage and apologizes. The Duke then authorizes him to teach her and asks the maid to take him. But before that, the protagonist interrupts and makes a request. The protagonist heading to the noble girl's room. He enters and introduces himself, but she asks him to come closer. She smiles, throws dirty water on him, and begins humiliating him. Then she kicks him and says he stinks. Right after that, we go to the flashback of his request. He asks how much authority he will receive to teach Lady Daila. Then he slaps her and tells her to stand up. 3 years earlier, the protagonist asks his teacher what she would do with students who did not appreciate her kindness. She says the best way is to put fear into them. We return to the present, and he tells her to treat others with respect and not make him say it twice. She hits him again and complains, when suddenly she receives another slap. She calls the servants to say he hit her, and he shows that he had authorization from the Grand Duke to do it. Later that night, her brother storms into his room, wanting to hit him and asking why he did that. He answers again that he received authorization from the Duke. Then the brother asks him to come with him. They arrive at a room, and he shows him his sister's paintings. He apologizes for earlier and says he got emotional. He says she does not deserve to be beaten because she became this way because of bloodlines. Then he asks him to save Daila. The protagonist tells him to wait and says she has not given up on learning magic, judging by the notes in her book. He says he will try. Still at night, he goes to her room and wakes her up by throwing water in her face. He drags her through the mansion and throws her into the forest. She starts complaining about him, and he says he has no intention of teaching her anything. He only wants to beat up some nobles, especially arrogant ones like her. Then she asks if he thinks he will get away with it. He says, "Who would believe you? If anything happens, he can apologize with his own life." She realizes the gravity of the situation and starts running until the protagonist uses 2-star magic, and she manages to dodge it. He ends by saying, "I think I missed." He launches an arrow, and she defends herself. He praises her, saying she was fast. She starts running again and then tries to attack him. He praises the courage behind her decision and says she will not have enough energy left to keep running. Then he asks for her last words. She says she will not beg and tells him to kill her already. He asks why she is so focused on bloodline. She says that she does not have that. What does she really have? Then she says she tried very hard to learn magic, but no matter what she did, nothing worked. He says he has heard enough and says goodbye as he attacks until she defends herself with magic without realizing it. He praises her and apologizes for being rude. He says it was not magic, but a demonstration of mana, and even so, she managed to do it. Then she starts crying a lot. He explains that she belongs to the school of the wild. He explains that most nobles belong to the school of regulations. They have different learning processes, and because of that, she will not learn the same way as the others. She asks how he discovered her school, and he says it was because of the paintings she made. He says they will begin lessons tomorrow. Then the noble girl calls out to him, puts her pride aside, and thanks him. She wakes up, tries to use magic, and fails. Leaving the room, the maid gets startled, and we see her first change when water is spilled on her. For the first time, she is not aggressive. She goes straight to the protagonist's room to wake him up, but he says she should only come in the afternoon. Later, her brother walks through the house and hears the maid saying that Daila has stopped hitting them and that she awakened magic. He meets with his father and brother, and they begin discussing Daila. We return to the room, where the noble girl is pouting and says she is angry. Then he says that resting is important, so now it is time for training. She says he is a boring teacher. He answers by asking if she wants a method that is not boring. She starts having flashbacks of the previous night and backs down. He begins teaching the manifestation of magic and says that once she can use it well, she will be able to use 1-star magic easily. He adds that the wild school improves through self-study and finishes by saying she is talented in that style, which makes her embarrassed. Her brother is outside the room and hears everything. Days pass, and she is always following the protagonist around. Her brother calls him for a conversation and asks about Daila. The protagonist comments that it will take her more time to learn 1-star magic. Then he asks why he called him. The brother answers that Daila does not play with him anymore and says she only keeps following the protagonist. Then he shows a doll he made for her. The protagonist asks if he wants to curse someone. We cut to a woman introducing herself. She says she's the Grand Duke's wife and asks about the protagonist's bloodline. He answers that he has none and that he is a commoner. 1 week earlier, he speaks with Aisline. She says she will be away for a while, and when she is in the carriage, she says she forgot that her mother will appear at the mansion soon. Back in the present, the mother is complaining to her husband because their daughter is being taught by a commoner. He says finding a teacher for her is not easy and that he was recommended by Aisline. Then she says having a commoner teacher will affect her social life. Then the other brother appears and says he wants to test the protagonist. The Grand Duke refuses, saying he is a real deal mage. So the brother asks to test the sister instead. Soon after, he leaves, and in the hallway the two brothers start arguing. He says blood is everything she brings to this house, and if she continues like this, it will be bad. Then he leaves, determined to bring her down. We move to Daila's point of view. She opens the bedroom door and hands over a letter, saying that if she loses the fight, he will be fired. He acts calmly and answers that he is a mercenary and only focuses on doing the job he is paid for. A week later, we follow the place of the confrontation. The brother and Daila appear in the ring, and then Daila has a flashback. He says that if she continues at this pace, she will learn one-star magic, and since she belongs to the wild school, she does not need a teacher. Then he says he can teach her how to fight and asks if she wants to win. She asks him for that. Then they go to the arena and the duel begins. He activates wind magic. She dodges and starts running, then activates ice to defend herself. He begins thinking that she is merely manifesting mana and not using magic, so he will break through with firepower. She starts having flashbacks of the protagonist saying that nobles and mercenaries fight differently. Mercenaries do not care about honor, and if a noble wins that way, they will be criticized. He asks if she really wants that. Then she answers that she wants to win. She defends herself, and suddenly she is attacked from behind. Her mother panics, until her father says it is not over yet. He notices that the protagonist did not even blink at that attack, and wonders if she had already expected Daila to escape it. Then she hides under the arena and attacks with ice magic. He wonders if going under the arena is against the rules, and sees that no one said anything. She keeps casting ice magic from below, and he keeps dodging. She stares at him with determined eyes, and he realizes something has changed in her. Then he ends up looking at the protagonist and thinks, that bastard, was this his plan? He says he will end this. He realizes that she is reading the flow of mana. She begins to notice that his mana flow has disappeared. Then we see that he climbed onto a mast and activates a spell to destroy the platform. But the mast breaks and he falls. She approaches hidden in the dust, and he uses magic against her. She tries to counterattack and fails. Then she keeps running, kicks him in the chest, and throws sand into his eyes. He realizes that she is using everything she can to win, so he follows her will and decides to give his best in the fight. She starts bleeding and thinks that mana is the ink and the incantation is the brush. Gather the ink with the brush and create an image. That is magic. She begins to feel mana in her fingerprints. Then she awakens one-star magic, and her mother is surprised. But her brother thinks it changes nothing and that he will win. The two attack at the same time, and an explosion occurs. The defense trigger is activated, so she loses and she starts crying. From the stands, we see her mother complaining to her father that it was a dirty fight and cannot be considered a mage's duel. Then he remembers himself in the past and notices the same look of ambition in his daughter. She feels terrible about the defeat, and even her brother says she did well, but she ignores him and the maids and goes straight to the protagonist. She looks at him, says she lost, and apologizes while crying. He is a little surprised and comforts her. Her mother appears and hugs her, telling her to rest. Right after that, she walks toward the protagonist and slaps him, saying he tainted her by teaching her to fight that way. Then her father walks toward her and hits her, saying she is the one behaving badly here. She says he is just a commoner. He agrees, but says he is also their daughter's teacher. He apologizes, and the protagonist says it is fine. They head toward the office. The Grand Duke says he deserves a reward and asks if he wants a 3-star spell. Without hesitation, the protagonist answers, "Yes, I do." He praises him for teaching his daughter 1-star magic, but the protagonist answers that many others have achieved the same. The Duke counters by saying that what his daughter needs is not an instructor, but a master. Then he asks if he is leaving. The protagonist says yes. After that, he leaves and goes to the library to get the 3-star spell, finding it incredible. Daila stands in front of the protagonist, bragging, and complains that he does not seem happy that his student succeeded. He comments that she recovered well and that, judging by the looks of it, she cried a lot over the past few days. She says her father should have told her the protagonist was not going to be fired. He wants to start the lesson and says she will learn other spells quickly. She gets happy and starts wondering which spell she will learn now. He says she will practice mana manifestation to train the fundamentals. She becomes discouraged because she thought she would learn another spell. Then she realizes the protagonist is looking at her. He says he is surprised that she is being obedient. She says she respects him because of what he did in the beginning. Night arrives, and they are still training. She is tired and says that next week she will have etiquette lessons. The protagonist congratulates her, saying she is finally receiving the education of a noble after learning one-star magic. They continue talking, and she says her father acknowledged him, but her mother still does not let him be alone with her because she is learning not from a noble, but from a mercenary. He says it is simple to earn her mother's approval. We move to the hall, where the mother is thinking about the bad example the protagonist is being for her daughter and imagines her becoming a barbarian after this. Then she enters the room, and Daila greets her very politely. She begins seeing her eyes in Daila. After that, Daila leaves. The maid drops something, and Daila asks if she is all right before leaving. The maid is stunned that she was not beaten. We shift to Aisline's point of view as she speaks with another noble named Alot. Aisline says she was worried that her sister did not have a magic teacher. Another noble named Denise interrupts and asks if she means Daila. Aisline agrees and says Daila is not the same girl as before and that she almost did not recognize her. She even manifested one-star magic. She comments that the teacher is a mercenary, which surprises the noble girls. Alot asks the teacher's name, and she answers that it is Derrick. We return to Daila and her mother. She says the protagonist is teaching her etiquette. Then she starts saying that she did not learn it alone. Everything about etiquette was thanks to the protagonist. Her mother gets irritated from hearing the protagonist's name so many times from her daughter. Then she asks the servants what they think of her daughter now, and all of them answer that she has changed a lot and is better now. At night, the protagonist is training 3-star magic and is interrupted by Daila's brother. He says he wants to talk about her and asks what girls are age like. They begin walking, and he says he is grateful to the protagonist. He says everything in the family changed because of him. They continue walking, and the brother comments that Daila's magic is a little different. The protagonist is surprised that he noticed. He says Daila belongs to the wild school and explains that if she reaches a certain level, eventually she will learn without a teacher, and that at that level a teacher would only get in the way. 2 months pass. She is sitting down, smelling flowers and talking with the maid, who feels much better. She can also use 1-star magic comfortably and says she missed this all this time, and that it is all thanks to the protagonist. Then she receives the news that the protagonist will no longer be her teacher. The protagonist is speaking with the Grand Duke. He talks about Daila's wild school and says that if he keeps teaching her, he will block her learning. Her father agrees and says he is relieved by his daughter's growth. The protagonist says he plans to leave on the next carriage Aisline will take. The Grand Duke asks for the library key, and he answers that he will return it along with the books he is reading. But the Grand Duke refuses and says he only wants the key, then says goodbye to him. The protagonist meets Daila in the hallway, and she starts talking to him. He says she will level up and that he will teach her something new afterward. She complains that he always knows what to say. Daila is sleeping and has nightmares of nobles humiliating her. Then she wakes up frightened. The maid enters the room, and Daila wonders if the protagonist would stay if she went back to being the way she was before. Then she says she does not want to be like before and tells the maid that everything is fine. The next day, when the protagonist is going to the carriage with Aisline, the siblings and Daila come to say goodbye. Daila asks why he is staring at her. She says she is no longer a child and will not beg him to stay. He says it was an honor to teach her and says he does not qualify as a teacher. She says he is screwed because she will say he is her teacher, so he will not have a peaceful life after this. She tells him to take care of himself, not to do anything dangerous, and not to get hurt. She says she is already an adult, and he remembers the past with his teacher. Then he repeats the same thing to her and says she does not need to become an adult so soon. She starts crying. Then he walks toward the carriage. She calls out to him and says, "See you again." He says they should meet again in Ebelstein. She agrees and cries even more. He arrives at the guild, where a fight is going on. He spots his friend and says he has come home. The leader hands him a glass of wine and says it's on the house. His friend asks if he was always that pale, and if he got even paler after living like a noble. She asks what he did while working as a professor. He answers dryly, saying it was nothing special, he just worked there. She replies that he already looks like a noble. The leader stops the conversation and tells her to stop. Then she complains that she went through hell working because he wasn't there. The leader says it was good because he brought a lot of money, but the protagonist cuts him off, saying he received something more important than that, and shows the book. They think it's a 2-star book and that it's rare, but he says it's a 3-star one. They are shocked and ask if he stole it, saying he could be killed if they catch him. His friend says she doesn't care about stealing and says she wants one too. He says the Duke gave it to him, but they don't believe him. After some time, they continue talking, and the protagonist asks if they received any more requests. He says he wants to do some extermination work because he's a little rusty. He wants to start tomorrow as early as possible. The next day, they leave for the mission. Everything goes well, and night comes. We see the protagonist training magic again, and he realizes that the wall to 3-star magic is very high. Months pass and winter arrives. His friend complains that it's too cold. The leader says they're crazy for doing this mission in this weather. Then he says a new request appeared for him, and it is to help a noble woman with magic sparring. The noble woman is talking to the professor and asks who her opponent is. The professor answers that he is a commoner. She asks if he wants her to beat up a commoner, and he says it's part of her training. She goes to greet him and asks if he'll be her opponent today. They introduce themselves and go to the arena. She asks if he knows the basic etiquette of a mage battle, and he says yes. He asks how much he should resist to be useful to her. She says he says funny things and that he can give it his all. He answers, "As you wish." She thinks the protagonist was praised from an early age for mastering 1-star magic and became very arrogant. Then she casts a spell while pointing at him. He dodges effortlessly and asks what the next attack is. She gets angry and sends more magic, but he breaks every spell she launches, and she is surprised by his control. Even the professor is impressed. She admits that she underestimated him and goes all out. He realizes that she changed her strategy and wants to destroy the entire sparring arena, and he is impressed by her decision. He realizes he can't dodge it and defends himself. When he lowers his defense, she appears behind him attacking. He is impressed by her talent and realizes there is no way to defend or dodge, so he activates a 2-star spell. She gets confused until she realizes he is attacking. She tries to defend, and he gets even closer to her. She calls him an idiot and says that rapid magic manifestation is her specialty. But he surprises her by using magic on the ground. They stop the duel, and her professor is very impressed because he is from the wild school, so he can't be read. She is impressed with the protagonist, says she underestimated him, and thanks him for teaching her something today. Then suddenly, she activates the same magic he used. The protagonist counters and moves in to attack, but the professor rings the bell and signals the end of the sparring. He thanks her for the duel, as she looks at him while biting her lips. Later, they are talking, and the noble woman praises him, but he responds by praising her. She says he must have worked very hard, and he says he had to survive as a mercenary. She says she likes people who put in effort, and ends by saying that maybe her professor doesn't like him very much. She thanks him again because she learned a lot. She says there will be another sparring match soon. He says that with her level of skill, she doesn't need to worry too much. She says she is not aiming for the weak. She wants to defeat Eislein, then dismisses him. She starts thinking that she heard the protagonist's name before and remembers that Eislein mentioned him. Then she runs after him and grabs him by the arm, saying, "You are the mercenary who taught Daila." At night, they talk in a mansion's room. She says she will get straight to the point and that she wants to defeat Eislein. Since her rival is not a 2-star mage yet, she thinks she has a chance. He says she has an incredible competitive spirit. She disagrees and says that actually she is jealous, dirty, and pathetic. He asks why she is saying that to him. She says she wants to show her sincerity, so she had to show her shameful side, and she has a few questions. She says that he spent time with her family, so he must know how skilled Eislein is and what ability she has. She also asks what she should do to defeat Eislein. He says Eislein's skills are on another level, and that she also has a lot of talent. While saying this, the protagonist thinks that the young lady in front of him is not asking because she wants compliments. She is desperate desperate enough to ask a low-level mercenary. He says she cannot defeat Aisline. Even so, she says she wants a win. She also says that the protagonist made Daila into a mage, so he can make her defeat Aisline too. He says there is no method worth trying, but before that, there is something bothering him. She asks what it is, and he says, "Do you know exactly how I trained Daila?" Then it shows a flashback of Daila during his harsh training. She answers that she doesn't know the details, but she wants to try. He starts the second question, which is that if she is trained by a mercenary, people may speak badly about her. She says she doesn't care and that she is serious about wanting her name to resound throughout the empire. She asks him not to judge her sincerity for a bad reason, because she knows what matters more than pride. He says no, she just needs to pay him because he is a mercenary, and she gets embarrassed. She agrees and says she will pay however much he wants. He thinks that if she is serious, then he has to respond to her feelings and use harsh methods. Now we move to the next day, and Aisline is walking with her friends. Then Alon appears and starts talking to her. She comments that she has a new professor and that he is a commoner. Then she reveals that it is the protagonist, trying to make her shocked, but instead, Aisline just congratulates her. Then we see a flashback of Daila and Aisline, where Aisline asks if she wants the protagonist to help her with training and notices that Daila got scared. Meanwhile, Alant keeps thinking and wanting Aisline to get angry because she stole their professor, but Aisline is worried about her because the protagonist is actually very harsh. We move to the guild, where the protagonist tells the leader that he will leave everything aside for now to focus on this job. The leader asks if he can make the noblewoman beat Aisline. He answers that it is not a dead end. There is still a way. As long as Alant can achieve 2-star magic, even if she faces Aisline, she can win. Then he asks the leader for help. He wants to create a safe environment for her. The leader asks if it is something dangerous, and the protagonist answers that the plan is dangerous. We move to the next day, and they start training, beginning with combat 10 times. After the duel, he tells her to rest for 10 minutes because they're going to discuss magic theory. She questions the 10 minutes because she has no mana left. He says that if she really wants to, she can still pull out some mana. Then they continue the training until she collapses from exhaustion. He says she worked hard and can go have dinner. Right after that, he asks her if everything is okay. She says she's not going to give up just because of the training and that it is basically just normal heavy training. He says he underestimated her. She says that tomorrow she will show her real ability. He asks tomorrow, "What did you mean by that?" "I didn't tell you. This was only a dinner break." Then she goes silent. The next day, the training continues. He says just 5 more magic arrows, then says 10 more, and she tells him to stop increasing it. After that, they start running, and she is exhausted. He says that if it seems impossible, giving up is also an option. She says it is not an option. Then he says, "You rested enough. Let's do sparring." As night falls, they go train again, and she asks for his opinion about her now after the training. He repeats that giving up is a good strategy. And she gets irritated and asks why she hired him then. He asks what it matters if she can't win, saying that being obsessed with victory cuts off growth. She says it means she is pathetic and envious, and she accepts that. She knows it is wrong, but her inferiority complex does not disappear. He starts thinking that it was not competitive spirit or hatred toward Aisline. What she hated the most was herself. It was not a fight born from envy, but a fight to escape self-hatred and her inferiority complex. Then he says to her, "Let's win. I will make you defeat Aisline." He gathers his guild to do an exploration in the labyrinth. She asks why she needs to go there, and he says it is for her to sharpen her instincts, and that it is the most efficient method to do that. He tells her to stay on guard, and the protagonist's friend warns that there are goblins ahead of them. The leader also says there is an ogre too. They start fighting, and she gets desperate. Then the protagonist asks them to protect her while he attacks the monsters. The ogre appears, and the leader immediately starts attacking it. Alan starts thinking about the situation and hears something behind her. A goblin was heading toward her, and the protagonist tells her to defend herself. She starts having flashbacks and then decides to fight back. She activates the arrow and defeats the goblin. And finally, she advances one more step. After that, they are resting and talking. The protagonist says the duel is in 2 days and asks how she is feeling. She says she is going to win. The day of the duel arrives, and Aisline comes to greet the protagonist. She asks if he wasn't too harsh on Alot. He answers that if she is worrying about her opponent, she is being too confident. Then she gets confused, and he says that no matter who the opponent is, you cannot lower your guard. Then Aisline and Alot enter the arena, and the duel is about to begin.